Well, hello folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you, and let's get right on into it. All right, let's pull up the screen. Yes, Ilus International. We're going to do a little Ilus update, and we're going to talk about some big news that should be coming soon. I got a lot to talk about with Ilus. All right, but first, I'm back doing YouTube videos. I was gone for a week. I was playing golf in Florida with my two brothers. And we had a good time down there, good weather. Now I'm back up and it's snow and ice and everything else. It is what it is. But actually, here's a couple of pictures of my brothers. So some people request them. This is my brother Junebug, and this is my brother Chilmont right here. And of course, that's their nicknames. This is me right here. And of course, we were able to, besides playing golf, go to a charity gala. It was actually for the Spotted Owl Society, and here we are actually going into it.
Right. Okay. Nice. Yes.
All right, as you can see, we were having a good time. So anyway, let's get back to the matter at hand. All right, let's take a look at Ilus, what it's been doing. As you can see, of course, it started out, it was down here around 5 cents. It ran up into the 40s. Even got up to almost 50 at one point. It has pulled back some along with a lot of the other penny stocks and OTC stocks, but it's still way up from where it was. It's still up 500% from 5 cents up to about 26 it is right now. We had some support at 27. We were talking about that up in here, that this might be a decent place to pick some up. It has broken through that support now. So the support that I'm seeing here is around 17 or 18 cents. And that actually goes back to here, and it goes way back actually to back in here. So, like I say, I'm thinking 17, 18 cents, pretty good support. This is not a bad buy right here, based on the fact that they're talking about uplisting the NASDAQ. And we'll get into all that here in a minute. But that's what's going on with the chart. And we did get a shareholders update letter, which these are great. They put them on their website. And it talks about how they're going to be releasing 4 big pieces of news in the next week or two. And I can confirm that we are still very much on track to achieve this, with more in the pipeline as we head to our first shareholders meeting. And this letter's from JP Backwell. And they talk about in here where they had some imminent U.S. acquisitions, one of which they completed, which was the Bullhead Products, which is the aluminum based truck products. And says we're in the process of completing the next 2 in Texas and Georgia. Said the final agreements with the sellers' attorneys, they're redlining them. That's where they go in and make changes, and it's called redlining. And says there's nothing more we can do except wait for them to get those things done, because these are bigger deals than the Bullhead. Bullhead was like a smaller company, and these are larger companies. And they also discussed that they're working with Bullhead Products on a 120 vehicle conversion, and Bullhead converts these trucks into like fire brush trucks and things along those lines. And they're also working on a $1.2 million vehicle contract in Mississippi, and they are working on a prototype, and they were given the order for the first vehicle to be completed. And here they've talked about where COVID's been a real problem, and Nick Link, who is the CEO, was out of action for 12 days because of COVID. He had tested positive for that. Of course, that slowed everything down. It's slowing that down everywhere. It's not just everybody's dealing with this new version of the Rona. So they're trying to get these things done. That big European deal they've been working on. And they're also working on a $100 million revenue acquisition. And they're still doing their due diligence on that. We'll cover that in a minute. But one of the things that interests me quite a bit was this virtual reality fire safety training division that they've got under BCD Fire. That interests me a lot, because that's sort of getting us into the metaverse, and it's good to see that they're very interested in that. I see that being something long-term that could be very fruitful for the company. It's where we're moving towards, folks. It just is. It's going to be, virtual reality is going to be all over the place in probably 10 years. So you might as well deal with it. And here where they're working on that big European deal, they're manufacturing at their new facility. They're taking the existing E-Raptor 6x6 and they're fulfilling those current orders, but they're working on a new one that'll be produced out of that factory. It says this deal is actually approved and we can only announce the full details once all the contracts are signed in the Parliament and the respective government. It's not a case of the deal won't go ahead. It is purely a case we cannot announce it to the public yet. It is happening. We will announce the details to you as soon as we are legally permitted to do so. The larger second phase of the deal is also approved, is what they're saying, and everything is lining up nicely for the announcement of that in due course. And here they talk about the share structure. That's very important. It says it has not been updated yet. We'll take a look at that in their security details in a minute. It says the 40 million shares, they won that by default. It says we did win the case for the cancellation of the 40 million shares, which they've spoken about. This is obviously very positive. That'll come off the total outstanding shares. And I know they're trying to get us well under 1 billion shares. And let's see what they talk about here. So they're trying to do the share structure all at once and get everything completed. So they had considered doing a partial update. However, from our current viewpoint of the bigger picture with the spin outs that they're talking about, and I think that's part of the way they're going to get into the NASDAQ, says they'd rather do it all at once. That way they make sure they get it right. And they don't want that coming back 6 months later and biting them. So that's a pretty interesting update, and it's worth the read. It's not that long, and it goes into a lot of the details, talks about the Rona problem that they're dealing with. And look, every OTC stock, every stock in the world is dealing with this crap right here. And when you're a small penny stock, OTC stock, inflation is a beast because it scares people. It makes them run to safety, and it devalues the future earnings of companies. And then we're dealing with the Rona, and this one right here, this newest version, is just wreaking havoc. Hopefully it'll burn its way out in the next month or so, and we'll be back to somewhat normal. But it's causing all kinds of problems for Ilus too. Obviously, when your CEO gets the Rona, that's a problem, and that's going to cost you a couple of weeks. One thing that's important about this company, this was their last quarter. It was the third quarter. As you can see, they had $3.1 million in revenue, gross profit of about $881,000, and close to $400,000 in net income. And they've made money each quarter. And this is a company that does mergers and acquisitions. But understand, they're a profitable company. Okay, this is not your typical OTC stock that's going to lose money for the next 2 or 3 years. They're buying mature companies that are making money and acquiring them, and then they make that part of Ilus. Not unlike the Borg, if you ever watch Star Trek. But anyway, as you can see from the P&L, they continue to make money, and that's a very good sign to see in an OTC stock. And here, as you can see, their outstanding shares have not been updated since November. It's still at 1.22 billion, and they're trying to get under 1 billion. So that 40 million will be coming off as well. So they are making some progress, but they're not ready to totally update the share structure. And that's obviously going to take a little bit more time. But it sounds to me like it's coming along pretty decently. But based on the Ilus statements and assertions, like say the European deal, looks like that's coming along. It's been held up by the Rona and Nick Link not being able to travel, but it sounds like that'll be getting done pretty soon. We know about the share structure, getting well under 1 billion. The 10 possible acquisitions, we know there's a $100 million acquisition they're working on. And of course, the European deal will be that as well. They're looking to uplist in 6 to 9 months, which is probably 5 to 8 now, with no reverse split. And they're talking about spinoffs where we might end up with 2 companies. But if you own Ilus, you'll own both. And usually spinoffs work out pretty well for the shareholders, especially with no reverse split. That's critical because you need to be at least $2 and have several years of financials to make that work, or you need to be at $4. So either way would be just fine with me. Their estimated revenue, they're hoping to be close to 15 million. I don't know if they'll reach that, but we'll find that out fairly soon. And this preferred and restricted shares, we need to talk about that. Back on April 5th of last year, Nick Link put out a letter to all the shareholders. He said, my holding company holds 390 million common shares, all of the preferred A shares, all the preferred D shares. And if you'll remember, Kung Fu Panda put out a short report and tried to use this right here to scare people and to try to help the shorts here. But understand this, he got in front of this months beforehand. I don't think that Kung Fu Panda had read this. Maybe he had, I doubt it. But anyway, he came out and said that, and he said, in all the preferred E shares, we have not sold a share and do not have plans to sell any. Rest assured, our interests are mutually aligned, of course, with the shareholders. So Nick Link was very smart in getting out in front of this, because that short port could have really done some damage. And obviously Nick Link knew that could happen. So he said, guess what? I hold all these and we're not selling them. So, you know, that's his letter to the shareholders. And so far he hadn't done anything other than what he said he was going to do. And the only thing they might use those for, said, if needed, to be used in acquisitions. The water mist technology, you've seen that. That's pretty amazing how they can put out fires with a fraction of the amount of water. And this water mist technology can be used for so many different products, and it's patented. And it's really useful. The discussions with Tesla pertaining to mist technology, again, talking about that mist technology, this has been confirmed by JP Backwell that they are in discussions with Tesla, and they're great for compartment fires, especially electrical fires, because the last thing you want is a bunch of water and electricity. Those two things don't match up too well. So right now, what I'm seeing here are some decent opportunities to pick up this stock. If this thing were to pull down to 17 or 18, that would be an excellent buy point, in my opinion, you know, for any of you cheapskates out there. And I am one of those, very much so. I like to buy on the bottom, and I like to buy at support. If you bought, you know, if you bought right here at the 26, 27, that's not a bad spot long term, I don't think, you know, but it has pulled down to as low as 22, and you need to keep that in consideration, because that right now is the bottom that it could drop to, and there is some support down here at the 18, 17. So just to keep that in mind. But again, if this last Rona burns out in the next few weeks and they start making these announcements, it's probably going to boost up this stock, because there's a lot of people looking at this thing and watching it very closely. It's one of the hottest OTC stocks and has been for a while. Typically, when you see something run from 5 cents up to 45 at one point, and they're talking about uplisting the NASDAQ, people are going to watch that very closely. All right, folks, and that's just an update on Ilus, and we'll keep watching it very closely over the next few weeks. It sounds like there is some big news coming, some acquisition news, and maybe we'll get some on that share structure as well, and the European deal. So if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Lets me know to continue to cover Ilus. And if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. And I hope you did like the content. And we'll see you next time on Mr. Frugal Investor.